Whoa. Episode jumps straight to the future as we see Ben and Gwen's future selves take down the future gorilla version of Dr. Animo and stopping him from a crazy idea to use a chrono teleporter to get to the past. Gwendolyn says that they should drop Animo off at the Plumber HQ since they were headed that way, and Ben 10K agrees, saying that they could go as soon as they find the kid. Gwendolyn yells out, calling to their kids, saying that if they didn't hurry up, they would be leaving without them, and we see two children poke their heads out from the sides of the hallway. The boy had messy red hair with green eyes, and the girl had short brown hair that was well brushed and had a hairpin holding something out of her face. Ben 10K tells them to come on, they don't want to miss Grandpa Max's retirement party. They then came running over to join their parents, not wanting to miss seeing their great-grandpa before he retires from plumber duty for good this time. And they all get onto the transport with Gwen calling out 5 for teleportation to Plumber HQ. We see in the base that has now been brought to space as a station, many different people from many different places as future Rook greeted the Tennyson family as they were walking around in the base after being teleported in, and Rook says that Ben actually made it on time, and Ben 10K tells him not to act so surprised, asking if he was ready to take over as High Magistratus. He says that it will be a challenge to perform the role, as well as Ben's grandfather, but Maxwell puts a metal arm on his shoulder, saying that he's gonna do just fine here, and Ben says they just couldn't show up empty-handed, showing that they brought future Anima with him, who actually sounded sad hearing that Max was retiring, as he says that things wouldn't be the same without him here. A young Ravonagander with bushy blue hair, about the same age as Ben 10K's kids, appeared greeting them, and the twins got excited, greeting him, asking how he was doing, calling him Young One, though he coughs and corrects them that is Rook Terra now, turning around and showing them that he'd finally lost his Pienthog, with Ben's son congratulating him. We see another familiar face appear, as future Kevin appeared, finally having lopped off that mullet, and had a little girl with him that had black hair, like her father, but reptilian-like eyes. She looked to be maybe a year or two older than the twins. It was a regular reunion of who's who of the series. Charmcaster and Lucy were also there, along with some other familiar faces as well. Future Albedo showed up with Chip. As the latter barked his name, happily wagging his tail, he was wearing a tiny plumber suit of his own for this event too. And he and the kids all ran off to play, while the adults were talking about the past together and just catching up with how things have been going on each of their ends. They had a solar flare that knocked out power to the system, and people started to freak out, but Maxwell calls out to everyone, telling them not to worry, as they have only lost power to the lights and artificial gravity. They are in no danger, and they all start to calm down, with future Rook telling them that they neglected to mention life support, and Ben 10K says that that's best to keep that to themselves, so they don't cause a panic. Maxwell tells them that he'll go reset the power, but they needed to get the people to the hangar. They nodded and began doing so just in case they would need to launch the emergency pod. Once everyone was safe, they were able to get the system back online, and Gwendolyn getting a sense of something, and Ben 10K asked if she is alright. She tells them that she feels maltruant on the roof. They create a large bubble with the help of Charmcaster, and the kids tell them that they want to help too, but are told to stay put until it's safe. No arguing as they are placed in a room to keep them safe, with Exoskull blasting through the hull, powered by a dwarf star core, as they had started launching people in a hurry, tend to a ship, making sure everyone got off safe. Ben 10K tells the group that he, Gwen, and Rook will take on Maltruant. Lucy, Kevin, Charmcaster, and Albedo were to take down Exoskull and join them up top once the kids were safe. And with a nod, they'd begun fighting, with future Albedo changing into Big Chuck, a fusion of Way Big and Upchuck. While they were handling things down there, Blanco, Ben 10K, and Gwendolyn headed topside to fight Maltruant, as he had begun using his time-shifting powers to fight the three of them all at once. Meanwhile, the kids were getting antsy, and Kevin's daughter, Lena, says that she'd had enough and used her powers to absorb the metal of the duct grate and rip it open, telling them to follow her. As they make their way, crawling around the ducts to avoid the fighting, Lena says that the controls are that way while leading, but Blanco Maxwell, that is Ben 10K and Gwendolyn's son, noticed the time cycles in a storage hangar and asked Lena to knock down the grate. He and Tara needed to get something important from there. She does as he asked, and the two slip out into the hangar while the girls go to the control room. Tara and Blanco then get the time cycles open, but the Ravonagander says that they don't know how to fly them. But Blanco reminds them that they have a secret weapon ready to help with that before Whistling and Chip, who had been following them to keep them safe, came over barking his name. They asked if he could get the things to work, and Chip nodded, attaching himself to one of the time cycles, making it start to fly up before reaching down, grabbing the other, and making the two combine in the air as a green energy sphere appeared around them before they vanished. While they were doing that, Lena and Elizabeth, Lizzie, Hope, Ben 10K and Gwendolyn's daughter, had gotten to the controls and used the automated defenses to start blasting at Exoskull, confusing the others as Lizzie appeared on screen waving with Lena also there. Lizzie tells them that they got this and keep blasting, but they'd had enough and blasted their way to the top to get out of there. Ben 10K had been using clockwork to counter Maltruant's time abilities while they were fighting, with Gwen and Rook trying to take them down, but he'd timed out, and that gave the rogue Chronosapien the chance he needed, as he then set everything to stop except for himself and his minions. We then see two green energy spheres appear in the sky as our Ben and Rook appeared in their set of time cycles, and Tara and Blanco appeared in the other, with ships still attached to theirs. Exoskull appeared, having made his way out with Subdora as they handed over the Dwarf Star Core and the Annihilarg, handing them over to Maltruant, who told them to keep Ben and his allies busy while he was working. And the battle continued from there, with Chip blasting at them, still attached to the time cycles, and Ben changed into Astrodactyl to fight Exoskull as Rook was going against Subdora. Maltruant was able to rearrange the Annihilarg to suit him, and he then showed he had some sort of hovering wagon or chariot of some sort, as he held up an egg and forced it to grow into a time beast, as he'd used them to escape through time, attaching it to the chariot to pull him along to wherever he was after. Ben and Rook hop into their time cycles, saying that they gotta go after them after Chip had used the time net from the time cycles he was attached to in order to hold down Exoskull and Subdora. Ben tells the kids that once they leave, time should resume and everyone would be safe, with the two nodding and waving, as our Rook and Ben then were about to take off, chasing after Maltruant through time.